Hello friends, today I want to talk about the unique interaction between Hutao and Yelan and how it doesn't really work that well. There's a misconception going around and that is Yelan worked perfectly fine with Hutao and is one of the Hutao best support, when to be honest in reality that's not true. It is not that wrong either, it is just like somewhat misconcepted because it kind of worked but it also kind of doesn't work. But anyway, over in this video I'm gonna solely explain why it doesn't really work that well, what is the significance of it, how does it change anything for you or if you're looking to pull for Yelan, and does this really matter and if you can fix it. But anyway, before we start, as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and again I do stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv as well, so don't forget to follow it over there. And let's get started right away. The thing to understand here is that if you play Hutao Yelan and you ever get a pyro aura on your enemy, then your Hutao will no longer be able to vaporize. So let's do a quick demonstration where we start with a power aura. And here you can see that the enemy will maintain a pyro aura and I will no longer be able to vaporize on my Hutao. The reason why this happened on Yelan and you cannot fix it is because Yelan doesn't have enough hydro application. She only has one unique sources of hydro application, which is her elemental burst, and that's just not enough to overtake the pyro aura once you have messed it up with Hutao. And this is not the case with Xingqiu's, mostly because Xingqiu's have multiple unique sources of hydro application, including his orbital sword and his C6, as well as his elemental burst of course, which is free unique hydro application. And because of that, you can overtake the pyro aura when you are playing Xingqiu's and reapply hydro once again to the enemy to continue to allow your Hutao to vaporize, but this is not the case for Yelan, so it doesn't work once you have screwed it up. Now, it's actually surprisingly easy to screw up. One of these methods of screwing up is simply not landing your normal attack on the enemy on Hutao. This is because Yelan elemental burst is dependent on your character normal attack, so if I normal attack here, it will not hit the enemy at all. So what that means is if you don't hit your normal attack and only your charge attack, you will apply pyro on the enemy and therefore you will screw it up already. And of course this can happen in actual practical combat when you're just trying to dodge or you didn't do your cancel perfectly and therefore landed a little bit away from the enemy. Now, unfortunately, even if you are playing perfectly, you can still run into this situation very easily. And this is because Hutao have a secondary external pyro application, which is Blood Blossom. And this right here, depending on how lucky you are, you might get affected by it less, but in general, it will pretty much always affect you. The Blood Blossom here will apply pyro, even though it cannot do no damage anyway, and screw over your entire aura application simply because it wipe up your hydro in the wrong time. And so depending on your RNG, usually if you play perfectly, starting in the later half of your rotation, you might start to lose vaporize either from a small amount like 1 to 2 vaporize or even 3 to 4 vaporize. But this also means you cannot vaporize your elemental burst as you don't get a hydro aura anymore at the end of your rotation. For example, here is a demonstration of a N2C Hutao where I'm able to hit every single attack. However, yet I still lost hydro aura simply because of the Blood Blossom RNG at the end here. No matter what combo you try to do, N1C, N2CJ, as soon as you see the pyro aura on the enemy, you are screwed over because your next attack will then start to reverse vape instead, and your Hutao will no longer be able to vaporize usually. And this here gets dramatically worse as you start to introduce more and more external reaction, like either external pyro, which is Thoma as your shielder, wherever he is in my party member list here, or double Geo, which could just completely screw over your entire rotation, even at the beginning of the fight, which means that your Hutao will pretty much just no longer vaporize at all. Here's an example of a Zhongli pillar doing a crystallize, so therefore losing the hydro aura. And again, it's gonna be the same with albedo and even worse when you do both of them. In fact, if we use some advanced technology, we can take a look at the overall combat simulation between Hutao and Yelan and Double Geo. And here you can actually see that it is possible, completely possible for Hutao to miss up to 80% of the vaporize, which basically means that you're not playing a vaporize comp anymore, you're just playing 4 character bundled together to do a bunch of damage. The good news is that it actually still does a lot of damage, which we will slowly cover, and there's actually still a way to fix Hutao nevertheless. Kinda sucks you won't be able to vaporize your Hutao elemental burst at the end of your rotation though, because usually the way you want to play Hutao is that you want to use your elemental burst at the end immediately after a PP slide. PP slide here is a unique technique utilized by Hutao player where during their last charge attack, they deliberately not cancel out of the charge attack because their elemental skill infusion cannot expire during an animation. So if you don't cancel off your charge attack, you force yourself into an animation, and then within that animation frame, you cast your burst in to make sure that you benefit from the elemental skill skill infusion even after the duration has run out by like a little bit already. And so this lets you get a lot of extra damage, and to be honest, with Yelan A4 passive, this is like absolutely perfect since the damage bonus here is going to slowly ramp up for Hutao, and then you'll be able to do a bunch of giant burst damage at the end of your rotation by vaporizing your burst with the bonus. But because you can't apply Hydro at the end of your rotation, this doesn't really work that well. And you might be thinking, didn't miHoYo design her to be a Hutao support? As you can see, her Constellation 4 increases the max HP for your entire party, which is especially good for Hutao. And while they kind of did, first of all, this is Constellation 4. Second, they specifically named this Constellation bait and switch. So now that you know how they bait and switch you. But the most important thing here is that in order to get Constellation 4, you have to first get Constellation 2, taking all Kumer. Constellation 2 here will actually apply extra Hydro to the point where it is completely fine to run Yelan Hutao no matter what. So this is pretty much a debate because, well, if you have to get Constellation 4, you have to get Constellation 2 first, and this does make her work well with Hutao. So what does this mean, and can you just not play Yelan together with Hutao? Well, you still can, it is still usable, you still vaporize like half your damage, you might just lose some vaporize at the end of your rotation. Overall, it is still quite decent, especially with the fact that Yelan can do a good amount of damage by herself, as well as her A4 passive can increase Hutao damage by a good amount to make up for the difference. Overall, currently, the early math are showing that Yelan is still competitively viable to compete with the damage that Xingqiu's can do, but at the current moment, it does look like that Xingqiu still win against Yelan, especially because of all of these interaction. Now, very fortunately, this is not unfixable either. One of the easiest way to fix it is simply to add a second Hydro characters so that you can get a little bit more Hydro application to make up for the difference. A lot of people has been experimenting with Mona, which is already enough to supply Hydro to fill in the gap that Yelan is missing, and this also gives you the Omen bonus damage here, so you don't lose that much. But of course, the best way to do this is simply to do Xingqiu's with Yelan together, as most of the figure crafting has currently been showing that this is the best way to play Hutao team now, is to simply run the double Hydro pairs. The point of this video is not to say like Yelan doesn't work with Hutao, don't roll for her, but rather to address what is wrong with the characters and why it doesn't work, and how to fix it as well. The most important call out here is that, well, she's just not a one-to-one substitution with Xingqiu's, because Xingqiu's will work perfectly fine with Hutao individually, but this is not the case with Yelan. So this is the most important thing to understand here in this video, is that she does come into problem, but fortunately we do have some fixes by either again running a second Hydro characters or simply running kazuha. Traditionally speaking, out there at the current moment, the best type of Hutao team is VV Tao, where you run a second power characters and then you run a Unemo VV shredder, either Sucrose or Kazuha, to shred the pyro from your second power applicator. Now, in this case, you can actually directly replace Yelan with Xingqiu's, but the most important thing here is to make sure your Kazuha elemental burst is available and it go Hydro. With a Hydro infused Kazuha elemental burst, it is also exactly enough to apply enough Hydro with the combination of both of these characters to allow Hutao to seamlessly vaporize. And you can actually also still do double VV setup in the process. Let me show you. Double VV Kazuha setup on Yelan. Easy. Yelan E, Amber Q, Yelan Q, Kazuha E, Swirl Pyro, normal attack, apply Hydro, Q, and then you do this. Poggers. And then you have no problem vaping here now with Yelan Q as well as Kazuha Q. So this you can do. So this is something you can do. And once again, you can do similar thing with Thoma or Yanfei as well, but they will just be dramatically less damage heavy, simply because one, you lose some uptime on Kazuha and VV, but two, those characters just can't carry elegy like Ember does. The problem that arrives with this team is that this does increase the difficulty to play Hutao by a dramatic amount in this specific setup. For most players out there, they actually cannot even correctly do the double VV setup using Kazuha, and now you remove the utility that Xingqiu's can bring, which again include interrupt resistance, damage reduction, as well as healing, which means that there is a dramatically higher chance that your Hutao just function less because of the removal of those utility, which by the way is insanely huge. I can't stress this enough, but everyone always thinks the Xingqiu's utility don't matter until they remove Xingqiu's and try it out and realize how big of a difference it actually makes. To be honest though, as we approach the end of the video, you can pretty much just throw the entire video out, because the best way to play Yelan is to just do double Hydro with pairing both Yelan and Xingqiu's together. This right here is just the best way to play Hutao right now, and so you wouldn't have to worry about any of this in the actual video. But I just want to make a really important call out that Yelan does work with Hutao, and to some extent like well even, because of all of these things, but she does not act as a one-to-one substitution of Xingqius, which you should be very careful of when you are doing things like splitting up your Xingqius and Yelan, because you might be want to play Raiden National, and in that case, you might run into some issues. But if you close your eyes... Overall, I think the information in this video are important to know, especially with the misconception going around that Hutao Yelan just work perfectly fine together, when that is not really true because you have to get around it. It still works so good, not that it's a problem, so you can still play it, but just be aware of it. Anyway, with that being said, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully you find the information in this video helpful, and if not, then just play Yelan and Xingqiu together as we go to our double Hydro Nation. See you guys next time.